Welcome to Lead Her Chats with your host, Rajade Richmond. This is a no-fluff zone where big girl panties are required. Nothing but true-to-life conversations take place here. We are broadcasting from Bold Radio Station, and now, here is your host, Rajade.
Welcome to another episode of Leader Chats. Thank you again, everyone, for joining me on another Monday evening. I know with coming from the weekend and then having a long work day and being here tonight, sometimes it's hard to get here, but I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited about the guests on the show today. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that's going on here in Detroit and how maybe possibly you can get involved with the things that's going on, especially around election time. Before I introduce our guests here tonight, I want to leave you with a thought, our leader tip of the evening. And the thought is, in order to impact change, you must first be the change. So that's the leader tip of the evening. And I want you to marinate on that thought and think about the topics we're going to be discussing tonight and how can you implement that quote into your life. Okay. Now, our guest tonight, I'm excited to introduce her. I actually met her last month at an event, and just listening to her talk was so powerful. And I said to myself, oh, I have to get her on the show. And so I was like, I hope I can get her in because she sounds so busy. But I want to introduce you to her now. Her name is Myra Lee. She's an active public servant in Detroit. She is a co-founder and chapter director of the New Leaders Council Detroit chapter. She is passionate about advancing effective social policy to address systematic issues of poverty, racial inequality, and the gap between the private and public sector in leadership, investment, and development in Detroit. Ms. Lee is pursuing her graduate studies at Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan as a Master of Public Policy candidate in 2016. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. Myra Lee. Welcome, Myra.
Hey, thank you so much, Jade. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm looking forward to just chatting away with you tonight.
Yes, I'm just excited. Like I said, when I met you last month, it was a lot of people there. When I did introduce myself, but we didn't talk very long. But I heard you talk about New Leaders Council, and you described it and everything. But for the people that are on the call, because there's multiple chapters, it's just not a chapter here in Detroit. Could you tell everyone what New Leaders Council is?
Yeah, gladly. So New Leaders Council is actually a national organization. We're a community of currently 45 chapters in 25 states across our country, and it's a network of progressive leaders. We are a 501c3, so nonprofit organization, and we're currently a community of 4,000 alumni. So we have a projected goal of reaching to 10,000 members by 2020. And so that's our scope. And I just wanted to emphasize that what's unique about our organization is that our market that we target is between 25 to 40 years old.
Okay. Now, in your bio, it says that you're the co-founder of the chapter here in Detroit. So how did it come about that you and other members started the chapter here in Detroit? Why was it founded here in Detroit?
Yeah, great question. So the national organization was looking to actually form a chapter in Detroit, and they had reached out to our current chairman, Dr. Ken Harris, the president and CEO of the Michigan Black Chambers of Commerce. And so from that charge, Dr. Harris had called upon several leaders, over 50 in Detroit, young professionals, to come together to be introduced to New Leaders Council. And from there, we chartered in 2014 and formed our first executive committee, which naturally I was a member of, to found our chapter today.
Awesome. But okay, so that's when you started. So what was the reason for the need? Did you see it? Did the people who founded it see a need for it to be here? What was this specific need for Detroit?
Yeah, from my perspective, it was just the perfect time. Specifically, Detroit, has definitely changed the narrative with definitely a strong narrative of talking about talent, right? Whether it's the narrative saying that Detroiters who have stayed and have been active and contributed, there's been a voice of talking about exporting talent, right? So people are coming all over, whether they were native Detroiters coming back or literally new interest talent is coming into the city. So for us, with this strong narrative, and also Detroit was perfect because we saw this as an opportunity to be the forefront of conveners and informers of our own generation, if that makes sense. A lot of times in Detroit, it seems that people speak for the millennial generation, but we felt like this was the great time to become a network where we can walk in spaces and build a platform for the young professionals and the young talent that we work with every day, are friends with every day. So we just wanted to definitely take advantage of that opportunity and be a collective together.
Awesome. Now, I just think that's good because, like you said, you mentioned it earlier. Detroit is currently going through a shift right now, and I definitely think there needs to be programs or organizations to help aid in that shift. And I think New Leaders Council can be definitely a catalyst for that shift, especially with development leadership. Because we have all when people hear Detroit, they never think about the positive that's happening here. They go back to the thinking of the negative, especially going back to Kwame Kilpatrick. They think about human trafficking, they think about drugs, they think about all other things, but they don't think about what is really going on down here in Detroit, especially with social policy and gentrification and things like that happening here. And so I definitely think there needs to be an organization here to kind of help, catalyze that and help transition that shift for people to be involved and who want to make an impact within the community. Um,
Yeah,
so
most definitely.
yeah, so I guess my next question would be for you is because New Leaders Council is a fellowship program, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So with that being said, what makes this type of fellowship program different from any other fellowship program that we typically hear of?
Yeah, a New Leaders Council, I would say one of the main niches that our organization provides is definitely the national footprint. One thing that's very powerful with that footprint is that issues that we see are core issues that we want to address in our own communities. We now have a family of 4,000 other members that we can reach out to, whether it's focusing on regional interests. So we can now have an impact regionally in the Midwest per se, or nationally. That footprint is really unique that a lot of current fellowship programs do not offer at this time. I think another niche that we have is the interest that we're not just interested in who's coming in, so our input of how many members graduate how many members graduate. One thing that we're definitely about in terms of our mission and main objective is we want to stay connected. We're not focused on transitioning anybody out of their current industry, but after the fellowship is over, we're really focusing on using each other's expertise to move forward. So simply put, I think what's rare is that we value staying connected. We survive off of the relationships that we build while involved with NLC, and we see value through collective impact, definitely, to transform what we see as, the need in Detroit based off of our own experiences. So I think that's very powerful.
Most definitely. So I know we have a chapter here in Detroit. How can people here who may be interested in joining, how can they get involved?
Yeah. So simply put, in terms of our social media, anyone interested in being involved, we currently are recruiting for our 2017 Institute, which again is a 5-month program. Applications close Monday, November 14th at 3 p.m. So if you're interested in applying, please go onto our website, which is just detroit.newleaderscouncil.org. And we also have a Twitter handle, which is NLC_Detroit.
Great.
And obviously, we're on Facebook, so definitely check
Oh
us out.
yeah. Yes, everyone's on Facebook these days. So,
Definitely.
so I just wanted to make sure. Oh yes, and then Matthew told me to remember to mention this. Tomorrow evening, there's an event, correct?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So, anybody out there listening, please attend our recruitment event tomorrow, which is scheduled from 6 to 8:30. It's an exciting program. Riding off the excitement of this presidential election, New Leaders Council Detroit is really focused on our primary election, right? That's more immediate
Mm.
impact. So what we're doing to support sending information is we're definitely going to have a discussion around key ballot proposals, such as focusing on the community benefits agreement. So if you're interested in anything about economic development and how community can be a stakeholder, come on down. Also, if you're passionate about transportation and what's going on in that specific sector, we will be discussing the Regional Transit Authority current ballot proposal. So tomorrow's going to be really exciting. And naturally, as a recruitment event, if you have questions, and want to learn more about NLC, who we are, and why you would want to be a fellow, we'll definitely have a Q&A session to just share more about who we are so we can recruit the best talent that exists in the city.
Great. Now we'll shift gears a little bit. I wanted to make sure we talk about New Leaders Council because I think it's an awesome organization for people to get involved with. And I think, like I said before, Detroit has a lot of talented people here who have gifts and talents, but they just don't know where to put, those talents, and they need some additional training and leadership and grooming, or just need to be connected with like-minded individuals. So I definitely think New Leaders Council is definitely a catalyst for that. But because, we are going into, the election next month, and I don't know about you, Myra, but I've had a lot of my colleagues say, they're not going to vote just because they may not agree with the current presidential candidates, or, some of them are not even, like you said, familiar with some of the core issues here. And so how can we deal with those issues and encourage people to get to the polls and vote?
Ooh, that is not an easy question.
I know it's not, and I've been trying to figure out how to tackle it because oftentimes people say, why should I vote? It's not going to make a difference anyway, or or I don't know anything about her or him, and it's and it's like, okay, you have to do something, and the first impact to make a change is voting, but a lot of people, they have lost faith in the system of voting, especially with this election.
Yeah, I think my immediate response to your question is first, I would definitely advise anybody who has lost faith in the electoral system to really pay attention to their primary elections. Statistics show that primary elections are highly neglected, but are a good estimate and measurement of like immediate impact from voting. With our primary elections, we're able to vote on judges, your educational, school boards. I mean, it really is a good. It really is a great scope of just seeing how voting is impacted. I think about being educated too. So if you're still kind of stuck on, I don't know if I want to go down to the polls. I mean, I still feel like people should care about civic engagement to do their best to inform everyone else. Because sometimes, although someone is voting, I'll be honest, not everyone is an informed voter, if that makes sense. And I think it's really important to start with educating your community so that they can have the option, right, of voting based on informed, evidence-based knowledge of who they're actually voting for. It's not an easy it's definitely an issue that all communities are dealing with. But I think the point is about with our voting, it's the most immediate way that we can make a local impact.
Absolutely. I just, from my perspective, it's better to vote than not vote. Because you don't know, you just don't know, and it's better at least to try to be a part of the change than to kind of leave it up to chance.
Well, one thing to be transparent, I think also people focus on the vote itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really trying to encourage those who I communicate and have this great discussion just on the everyday basis is being prepared to hold elected officials accountable. So it's not just about the immediate, walking to the polls and making your vote, but if you're frustrated with the system, figure out what part of the system you want to impact. So it's not just about voting to me, but it's also about if you're frustrated with the system, who are you holding accountable? And how are you best informing yourself to equip others with the information so that you can collectively, right, have these conversations and allow elected officials to know that you're present. So I would definitely say it's beyond the voting, and I think people get caught up with that. I think it's about holding ourselves accountable. If we're frustrated with what we see, what are you doing to build a momentum of change? So I think for me, when I have these conversations, I'm really big about how do you participate in what's the change you want to see, and you have to step up. I'm really big about accountability and leadership because we're all frustrated. I don't think anyone's not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm
Mhm.
with you 100%. I'm a proponent of, if you're going to complain about something, then what solution are you going to provide for it? That's my thing.
Mhm.
Just don't huff and puff about something if you're not trying to actively work on, resolving the issue. So I'm definitely a proponent of what you just said 100%. So I'm with you there.
Great. Yeah.
And I also think that's part of leadership. That's a part of taking the lead and initiative, not just necessarily waiting for someone to say, like, okay, here's the solution, let's make it happen. And I think that's another thing that I think New Leaders Council can, help people with as well is like, if you have an idea or a concept that can possibly resolve, especially some of the issues here in Detroit, and they could just help codify your vision. I think that would be a great thing, because it's like I said before, there's a lot of great people here with a lot of great ideas that could solve a lot of our problems here in Detroit, but it's just all about, like you said, stepping up, getting connected, and trying to see how you can make an impact.
Yeah, to complement what you're saying, Jade, is that one thing I challenge myself as a personal mission is that, when you get in spaces where you feel like you're preaching to the choir, how people say that saying, I love New Leaders Council because you have so many sectors in one room. So it's definitely improving my leadership skills to go beyond those who think like me. And I think that's really important for people to be stepping out of the spaces where you're preaching to yourself, if that makes sense, and to be in spaces where you're going to receive healthy conflict or healthy opposition. But I feel like being in those spaces of diverse perspectives helps you to really learn your own values and instead of just regurgitating the same message. Does that make sense? So I
Yep.
feel like another thing I would charge those who have issues with the voting process currently is to step in spaces where you're not familiar, people don't really receive the same message, and see how many of those people can either get on board with yourself, or you'd be surprised maybe you would have a different position outside of those conversations. But I would definitely challenge people out there who are frustrated to step out of their comfort zones and practice talking to those outside your own sector, because I think they I think you're stronger when you understand how to align what does overlap when it comes to different positions on the same issue in order to practice moving forward with one united front. So I just think the election period, I get excited because it's really learning, how to stretch yourself and to also receive information in a constructive way that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people aren't willing to be vulnerable in a space of putting your values on the table and seeing and receiving others' values at the same time. Some people get a little bit uncomfortable. So I just advise others to step in those spaces and figure out where you do align to make something happen to improve your communities. At the end of the day, right, we care about changing our neighborhood. So I just challenge people to think about that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Leadership. I think when people hear leadership, they're looking sometimes for someone to lead them, or sometimes they're looking to be the leader. But like you said, sometimes it's all about being vulnerable. Sometimes you got to follow others and learn from other people before you can take the lead, because we don't know everything. And I like to tell people, especially my clients that I work with closely, is that, leadership is not a destination, it's a journey. We're forever growing, we're forever learning. And, and when you think about it, that's life. Life is a recurring cycle of learning. Life is like a university. That's what I like to say. Because you should be always, every day you should be learning something, whether it be personally or professionally. You should be learning something daily. And you should be
Agreed.
open to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how we grow. Without it, then we're stagnant. If we have already perfected everything in life and we're just here, then there's nowhere for us to go. You can't go up, you can't go down, you're just stagnant. And who wants to be stagnant? We want to grow.
I completely agree. And I feel like, there's an issue, in that quiet time if you're always the informant. So it's to be in spaces where at times you are the educator, but sometimes it's important to continue to put yourself out there and be in spaces where you're consistently receiving information as well. So it's definitely a balance of receiving and giving in terms of information that I feel like as a leader, as a productive leader, you're currently walking in both spaces to be an effective vessel, of information and change building.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So I want to go back to NLC because it's just such an awesome organization and program that you all have. And I just want to keep hitting at it so people can, I'm beating the dead horse. I'm going to make sure
I
they
love the
know.
messaging here. I love the messaging.
I'm going to beat the horse tonight, y'all.
Apply,
So,
apply, apply.
so with NLC this year, I know you said there's a new, I'll actually be applying myself. But I know there's a new incoming class coming in next year. So what is the focus currently this year or the past year of this past summer for NLC leaders? What kind of projects were they working on here in Detroit? And what were some of the results that garnered out of the fellows this past class?
Yeah. So again, to just talk to the community out there who's listening in, we were founded in 2014. So anyone out there who are part of the startup community, we are definitely a startup. And I just say it to emphasize the last 2 years was focused on base building. We are building our capacity. For our institute, we have a maximum capacity of accepting 20 fellows per institute. So as we're growing and moving into our third year, this year is really focusing on being in the community, focusing on civic and community engagement, and building philanthropic partnerships, and really building our identity. So what I'm transparent about is that anybody who's interested in being involved in the 2017 cohort, this cohort will be definitely the class that really will support how we build and frame our DNA. What do we want to be about? How are we living? How are we leading our legacy as we grow? And specifically, what issues do we feel like are currently relevant that we feel like we have the capacity to support long term? One thing I can definitely say about my chapter, which is such an honor to be around such talented individuals, is that we don't think short term. We're really big about how can we be supportive community partners to address key issues and to think thoughtfully, not immediately, and really think about the whole picture of who's involved, key actors, and what is the best position we can play to make a significant difference, which isn't easy. So one thing I would say is that NLC Detroit is definitely a program not for everybody. We're really about action and really stepping into understanding we're leaders ourselves. So I really emphasize that because the Institute is so short. It's only 5 months. So we're really about rolling up our sleeves this year and figuring out where can we insert ourselves through community engagement and civic engagement to make a difference. So we're still in the base building phase, I would say.
Awesome. Now, as the director of NOC, I'm just going to pick on you a little bit. As the director this year, what are some, community projects that, you would like to see NOC get involved with?
Yeah. In terms of community projects, one thing that we're really we have an interest in is that, well, with I'll go back to the Institute. One of the key pillars of the Institute is that the fellows are charged with capstones. So they have 5 months to create a capstone, which in essence is a vision for a startup. And so one thing that we want to focus on is figuring out how we can take these capstones and create initiatives, if that makes sense. So as you're going through the fellowship program, we're actually utilizing those visions to build out our programming, if that makes sense. And so one of I'm trying to be careful, AJ, because to be honest, because none of this stuff is patent, it's kind of hard to.
I understand. You don't want to say the wrong thing, and people take it to heart. Like, wait, you said this, Myra?
No, it's not about the wrong things. It's just they're fresh ideas. So to be on the radio, but the one thing I would say is figuring out how to utilize current resources, whether it's private sector dollars or philanthropic dollars, to give support where our members are working to build. So it's like we're starting at home to see how we can basically problem solve where the need is. One thing that we're really trying to be advocates of too is the Flint water crisis. It's not an easy challenge, right? And everyone's got their hands in the pot of trying to serve and support. So for us to be the only Michigan chapter with NLC, I'm definitely comfortable expressing that currently we are thinking of effective ways to be involved with that issue. So although I can't really right now confirm any projects immediately, that's definitely one of our focal points of figuring out how to deal with the Flint water crisis and sensitivities to the current water shutoffs going on in the city of Detroit, and that connection of just water quality, right? So environmental health and safety issues in the city of Detroit. We're definitely focusing on figuring out where we can best position ourselves and having discussions around those issues that are unique. There's a lot of discussions where you get community experts and leaders in one space, and they talk to the audience. So we're trying to figure out creative programming where the audience, which in our target audience is always going to be young professionals, are actually the experts themselves, and it's actually an exchange of expertise that's happening. So I don't have a flashy name for that, but as director, with most of our programming that we're launching this year, it's really going to be our organization as young professionals promoting ourselves as talent that we are to definitely solve those problems, along with elected leaders and high-ranking officials, to really put ourselves in those spaces of being true consultants, because we are experts and we're just highlighting ourselves at the same time. So it's working on that bridge of trying to work together with the experts that are already in the field, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, most definitely. You mentioned the Flint water crisis, and I think another prevalent issue here in Detroit is the homelessness. I think that's a major thing. I know there's some organizations trying to tackle it, but it still seems like there's still a lack of need. And then something I just became aware of that I didn't even know that was going on here in Detroit was human trafficking. And so I just became aware of that.
We're actually one of the main, I don't know the proper term, but we're definitely one of the main points of where people are trafficked. What's the proper word? But yeah, we're one of the main points.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know that, because when people think of that, they think south of the border. They think around Mexico, Texas, in that area. We don't think up here in the Midwest there's human trafficking literally going on.
And it's a real issue. And to be honest, because my background's in policy, it's really disappointing about how behind policy and law is around
Mm-hmm.
this issue. And on the local level, it would be interesting to know through community organizing what models have been actually working. Because I agree that it's a big issue in Detroit, and I know I would like to be informed about any successful
Mm-hmm.
models that are currently happening. Do you know of any organizations that are kind of leading that effort in Detroit at all?
Not in
I just
Detroit.
haven't
That's
heard
the
any.
thing. That's the thing. None in Detroit that I know of. I know a couple of churches and things like that that are, raising money, but in terms of
Mhm.
like actually combating it, no, none in Detroit. That's why I was so shocked when, because I was kind of researching recently, current issues here in Detroit to kind of see, what are some, social policy issues and things, and trying to see like which politicians are trying to address these issues. And, when I came across human trafficking, I was just blown away because I honestly had no idea that that was an issue here. And I've been here about 10 years now, and I didn't know that that was an issue. And so, one of the things that I would like to see from NLC is that maybe I know the organization could only cover so much ground, but maybe just at least shedding light on some of the issues that's here in Detroit. Because, like myself, like I consider myself to be a leader, but for me, it's hard for me to want to get involved in things if I don't even know that there's an issue.
Hmm. Understood. I think, well, where we're going, so I shouldn't even say I think, you're hitting exactly, that's why it's kind of hard to say, like, right now, what are our
Hmm.
signature programs, in transparency to anyone listening. I mean, that's what we're working on, is what is our signature programs. But the one place that we're definitely confident in is, creating a space where information is given. We're really big about right now is that
Right.
information, it's two issues, right? Information still needs to be distributed. So there's an issue of information getting to the city of Detroit of everyday residents. But another thing is it's about once information is distributed, who's controlling that dialogue and who has the ability to impact action. So where we see ourselves in a strong position is to be those conveners. So after the discussion with NLC Detroit, we're really about once a discussion has happened, we're also interested in figuring out how do we build action and being the facilitators of those actions. So, we definitely, with every year, there's going to be new things. So we're definitely adaptable too within this framework. But I think it really starts with, I like what you said, being honest with yourself of how much information have I been receiving, and do I feel confident to make an educated decision of next steps. So one advantage, if anyone's interested, if they're really about strategic thinking and planning, NLC Detroit is really a great opportunity for you to be a leader, but also step up to convene those spaces, to have multiple people in the room, to move forward with a plan. Some people like to jump over the information and start immediately. We're definitely really about evidence-based solutions. So we definitely are strong, I would say, with strategic planning first, understanding the information and figuring out the needs gaps that need to be addressed. That's definitely a strength that we have.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Myra, unfortunately, we are out of time. See, that went fast.
I sure did.
So, if anyone wants to get in contact with you personally, how can they get in contact with you?
Yes. If anyone's interested in just learning more information or want to talk to me directly, I'm all about coffees or conversations. Please feel free to reach out to me or my organization via email, which is Detroit, lowercase letters, at New Leaders with an S, council.org. That is our chapter account. Again, that's Detroit dot New Leaders Council, one word, .org.
Great. And can you give them the information for tomorrow night one more time?
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Our recruitment event will be from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at the Horatio Williams Foundation, which is located at 1010 Antietam Ave. Again, that's at the Horatio Williams Foundation. We'll be discussing the core, ballot proposals that will be listed on November 8th. And again, we'll have a great reception afterwards, so you can be around young professionals interested in doing things already in Detroit. So please, anyone who's interested in our organization, definitely be there tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Horatio Williams Foundation for a great program and just great mixing and mingling. Real relaxed.
Well, thank you, Myra. I'm really excited that you're on the call, and I can't wait to meet you again in person.
Yes.
So hopefully I can make it tomorrow evening. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna try to make it tomorrow evening. So yes, if I can make it, I definitely will stop by and say hello.
Please do, and you have my number, so if you ever want to chat further about how we can start a program based on a wonderful vision that you have, I'm all ears, so we'd love to talk to you further.
Awesome, yes, definitely.
Thank you so much on behalf of NLC Detroit for giving us a platform tonight. It's been a great chat, so I appreciate it, Jade.
Not a problem. You'll get a recording of this tomorrow, okay? So you'll have it to share. So, you'll have time to share before the event tomorrow and before, the deadline for the application process.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. You have a great evening and feel better.
Oh, thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Hop on over to searchforherexistence.com and join in on the discussion. Also, tweet us at searchforherexist and tell us what you think about today's show. See you next week, all on Bold Radio Station.